Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I am your host, Amanda, and I am so glad you are here. This is a space for dance teachers and anyone interested in teaching dance who is looking for motivation and fresh ideas. As teachers, we spend our days motivating and giving pep talks to our students, and now this podcast is a pep talk just for you. We hope that it helps to ignite new ideas and even work through some deep dance related thoughts before you head into the studio. Thank you for your support, and now let's get into today's episode. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I hope that your day is off to a great start. I'm recording this right now looking out my window, and the fall leaves have really started to change here, and it is just such a special time. If you haven't listened to my Welcome October episode from last week, I highly recommend it because something that I really found when doing that episode is just taking note and noticing how often our days can really get into a monotonous flow. Routine is a good thing. It definitely helps us keep on track, especially with a busy dance teacher schedule. But if we go about every day the same way, doing the same thing, and not taking time to find the beauty in the moments or to take a look around, I feel like we could get so caught in the loop and things could easily start to feel uninspired. So, just checking in with yourself wherever you are as you're listening to this episode today and taking in not only the inspiring ideas from the episode, but also the inspiration that can be found all around you. Today's episode is a really important one, and it's one that I think we think about a lot of the time, but maybe we don't always talk on it a lot of the time. You know, in our classrooms, we are teaching dancers. We are getting them ready for performances. We are advancing them through different levels of different styles through their years. But knowing what is outside of this and available to them when they've graduated, I think is also such an important discussion that we should be having with our dancers because so many of them may have interest in continuing dance outside of your studio once they've graduated. And a lot of times, these dancers may not have parents who know the dance world well. Maybe they do, but maybe they need a little bit more guidance and assistance when it comes to knowing what's out there. Speaking from personal experience, when I said that I wanted to go to school for dance, my parents were very supportive of me. However, there was also the question of, well, what is that going to look like? Or what can we expect from this? What are you going to do with this? And we know you love dance. You've danced all your life, and now it's going to be a part of your career. Okay, there were just a lot of questions around it. And what's really interesting is, going through this process, especially with like your high school dancers, even like your middle school dancers, I don't think it's ever too young to start this discussion because you could really find that one of your dancers, even at a young age, may have serious interest in continuing dance as a professional career. And you can really hone in and like foster and support this dream by giving them different opportunities that are going to help them get towards their goals and dreams. So, I know previously in episodes I mentioned the importance of knowing what your dancer's goals are, not only in this year, but in their future ahead. Where do you see dance taking you? And for some, they're taking dance because they're just loving it in the moment. And maybe they don't know what they want to do outside of this yet, but that's okay. I think it's also important to tell them and explain to them the options that are out there for them as well. So this isn't just for our dancers who come to us and say, I really want to dance professionally, or I want to go to school for dance, or I want to be a dance teacher. This is for all of your students because showing the students also that they have these options, I think is just so helpful because that might spark the dream in one of your dancers. And again, from experience, going through the public school system, this is not necessarily a career path that is brought up or discussed very often. Maybe if there is a dancer in the class, the teacher might take, a special interest in like allowing some dance options to be shown, but it's not really one that we talk about in the public school setting unless you have dance as a program within your school. I grew up at a school where dance was not in the school. So all of my dancing was done in the studio. And so therefore, everything that I knew about dance was there. And then when we'd have school, it was so separate from that. So, one thing that we can do that is really helpful is providing resources for our dancers that do have interest. And even if they're not sure if they have interest, providing resources. I remember too going to my guidance counselor when it was time for me to begin college applications. And I mentioned that I wanted to go to school for dance. And they didn't really know where to begin. They plugged it into the database and showed me the schools that had that option in the areas that I was looking around the country, but it wasn't as well informed. And so, as dance teachers, I think we should also offer that support and encouragement. If someone is looking to go to school for dance, for example, this is just one example, but that we help them through this and we help their parents too, because it's such an unknown, it's such an uncertain feeling. And so many of us in this industry, I think, can feel that way because we've all been there. I mean, this is our career, so we've all gotten here somehow. So, first off, talking about dance as a career, I think is a great place to start. And if there's a class that you have in your weekly schedule that has a little bit more leeway and freedom, this could be a great idea to one day have this be a topic, just one day out of your whole year. And maybe you also include movement exercises in there as well, so you don't feel like you necessarily like took a whole class time to discuss this. But starting off with a list of dance outside of these walls. So forgive me if I forget any. I really did my best to try to encompass as many as I could, but I'm just going to briefly go through this list and give some ideas about how we can build or give direction in these ideas. So, of course, there is dancers that are just wanting to continue dance. They want to perform, they want to continue their passion of dance outside of these walls, but might not necessarily want to go to school for dance. So, for that, I think it's important to share, like, for example, if they're a graduating senior and they know they're going to college in this area, maybe help them out by finding studios in that area that offer adult classes or drop-in classes, if that's available in your area. And even too, like maybe there are places that are farther out. Maybe you could expand your radius and show them different opportunities that might be available to them to still dance, even if maybe the school that they're going to doesn't necessarily have a recreational dance club per se. So helping them to find studios in that area. Another one, dancing professionally and working. I mean, this is a big one, and I think that for us, helping them to begin auditioning as early as they can so that they get more used to the process, I think that could be a really helpful tool for dancers of any age that are expressing interest in doing that. So even if you have a 10-year-old come up to you and say, "I want to dance. That's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a dancer." Well, maybe even just trying out like different workshops that have audition experiences and things like that so that they are getting a part of the process, or depending on what age, maybe sharing about auditions that could be happening around your area. And I will say I know this is probably really like subjective based on like the region you're in. So like for example, for me it's not that far to like go to New York City, it's not that far to go to Boston, but like if you are in a different part of the country, like it might be more difficult for you to get to different places where these auditions are happening. However, there could be so much within your local field. So checking around, looking at that, and helping through this with your dancers. Even providing mock audition opportunities at your studio can be really helpful. Looking at your competition team. When you pick your competition team for the season, are you having an audition experience or is it invite only? Maybe bringing in an audition experience would be really helpful for those dancers who are looking to dance professionally so that they get that experience. All right, next up. This isn't necessarily a career path because like this could branch out to so many ways, but this is just for dancers that are interested in going to school or university for dance, particularly as a major or a minor. Obviously, that could take them off into different career paths. But as I mentioned in the beginning, helping guide dancers with that interest into programs that you have heard of, know well of. Maybe you have colleagues that have given like good reviews of different things or different programs from other students or things like that. Helping the parents and the dancers to come to find those, I think, is really helpful and important because, as I mentioned, depending on what type of school they're going to, the guidance counselors might not necessarily know how to guide them to these like dance specific programs. And along with dancing in college, maybe your dancers have a lot of interest in a dance team or a college that has dance team. And just like that, just as I mentioned before, I think helping to guide them. And, there are so many resources online now that you can share. You can even like search different YouTube videos of different university teams if you wanted to share things like that. And also helping them to prepare specifically for your graduating seniors, giving a little bit of extra time and helping them to prepare for maybe the auditions that might be happening for the team or skills that they may be requiring to know for that dance team. And maybe that might require a few private lessons here and there, but offering it, having that available, I think is just such a helpful tool and support system for them as they're going through this. All right, now dance medicine and science. This is a really awesome field. And sadly, I feel that a lot of the time dancers come to this field because they've gone through an injury. I'm speaking very generally on that, but I feel like a lot of the time, a dancer has an injury and then they go through the process of healing and they see all of the different professional tracks that they could have in helping other dancers who are going through injuries and things like that. So, for dance medicine and science, there's also some great Instagram profiles out there and some great resources that you could show them and send to them to, say, this is a great resource for dance medicine and science. And I know that you have interest in this. So I think it's maybe an account you should start following or just seeing and seeing the research and the articles that are coming out from this foundation or things like that, like whether it's IADMS or if it's the Harkness Center, and I'll leave some links in the show notes to these particular associations or programs that I was talking about. But it's never too early to look into all that is coming out in the field of dance medicine and science, especially if they have an interest in it. I know from my personal experience, I did have an injury my junior year of high school. And with that injury, I was so fascinated by all of the different professionals I was working with to then get myself back on track. So much so that that is what I started going to school for. So when I was looking for school, I knew I wanted dance to be a part of my future. And I specifically was hoping to branch into the dance medicine and science field. But personally, through my time doing this program, what I noticed for myself was that it was a great interest for me. But my love, my heart and soul was in the teaching. And so I did shift my major then to elementary education. But that love and interest in dance medicine and science has always been there for me, even to the point that now I'm getting into the next career path, but even to the point that I ended up getting my Pilates certification because it was important for me as a teacher to be able to bring in things that I know helped me to not only strengthen from my injury, but to help me prevent future injuries as well. So, getting into the next career path, fitness and fitness instruction, I think can also be a huge part and a huge branch of this topic. So, if maybe they're interested in being a Pilates instructor, a yoga instructor, a Zumba instructor, there are so many different types of group fitness exercise or even like private or like one-on-one type of exercise personal training certifications that one could get. And so if you have a dancer that is really interested in the fitness world and wants to include dance, helping them to see the vast amazing career opportunities that lie ahead for them and different tracks that they may take or different types of movement systems that they might find love and joy and passion in teaching. Because a lot of these dancers, too, like they're probably taking their dance classes during the week. But alongside that, how many of them are also taking group fitness classes? I feel like the number's probably pretty low on that. And so it's helpful to inform them about what else is out there, especially if it's something they have interest in. Two, I'm going to take these two, dance teaching and choreographing. I'm going to take those separately out because we're going to talk about those a little later. So, dance teaching and choreographing is out. But along with dance teaching, say you have a student who shows interest in wanting to be a studio owner when they grow up. If a dancer comes to you or in this particular exercise that you're doing says that they want to own a studio, I think it's so important to help guide them because a lot of the time dance studio owners, they need to also have this business side as well too, because it's not just about the school itself and the running of the classes and all of that creative side. It's also about running a functional business. And so maybe for a student like that, maybe if they have like an internship program with their school, because some high schools do have internship programs, maybe they would be a really good candidate to consider for internship at your studio if you were open to that. Because interning is going to help them to see so much of behind the scenes that they're not necessarily seeing by just going to their classes. So, and also maybe if their schools don't offer that, maybe you could offer something like that. And maybe because they're not necessarily getting credit for schoolwork, but just in general, having the opportunity to intern and to be mentored, I think is so helpful. I myself interned and I am not a studio owner, but it was just so great for me to see all that was going on behind the scenes because as a senior in high school, I had no idea. I was just there taking classes and it was so helpful for me to see the whole picture. And it really gave me a greater appreciation for everything and the different ways that you could take dance into your future, into your career. So, other things that we can expose our dancers to as well is theater, tech, and show design. This is something that I, in my adult years as a dance teacher, have found a great interest in because it became my role at recital to help with the lighting design and to call the show cues. And I had no idea how to do this, but I learned from my teachers, the lighting directors, the tech directors, and all of that on how to do these things. And though I am not able to set lighting or anything like that, I just had such an interest in it. And I thought it was so cool because that is something that you're taking your dance and you're bringing it to life with the lighting and different set and things like that that you can do. So that's always a fun one. And if you have dancers that are interested in that, making sure too that you're providing information on local theater options, or maybe there's theater programs in your area. If there are dancers that are interested in wanting to perform in theater shows, helping them to get to auditions and giving them that information, putting that information out on your studio bulletin board, I think is awesome as well. And then the next one that I had was just a broad branch, but mental wellness as a career track, whether that is dance therapy, life coaching. I think there is so much that dancers can learn and know from finding out about the mental wellness industry and taking those tools to also support them as they progress in their years of dance. And there are some beautiful accounts out there on Instagram that are mental wellness professionals that are giving dancers tips because knowing the mind, body, soul aspect of everything you're doing in dance is such a huge connecting quality. It's not just about the skills, it's not just about the movements. There is so much going on in our dancers' brains and in their minds and in their hearts and emotionally. And providing those resources are not only going to help them to see what ideas they might want to veer towards in their future, but also tools that they can use themselves through their dance years. So, giving them those resources or maybe saying, like, hey, you should follow this Instagram account. This is a mental wellness professional and they share a lot of dance content. And then again, it's them being exposed to it and then seeing what could be a potential for their future. So I know that I mentioned earlier that dance teaching and choreographing I was going to take out of the mix, and that's because I think it requires a lot more time. So, seeing how far we've gotten into today's episode, I am going to make a part 2 of this. So, part 2 is going to launch on Thursday, and part 2 is going to be all about how to incorporate choreography and dance teaching as career paths and how you can incorporate it for your students in practice because this is really important to me. So I want to make sure I have time to go into depth and explanation for this. And I think it's important to me because it's the career tracks that I chose for myself. So over the years, I have developed ideas about how to help those and those who are unsure about whether or not they want to do choreography in their future or teaching in their future. And so I have come up with different programs that I've used and have found a lot of success with, but just also a lot of beauty with because it made me see my dancers, I should say, in a whole new light once I started this program. So everything about that is going to be in Thursday's episode. So make sure you check back for that part 2. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope that it brought some new ideas about how you can share about dance careers in your classroom experience. I so appreciate your support and listens. And just a reminder, if you would love to follow this podcast, just make sure you're following it on the podcast platform that you enjoy the most. If you feel called to rate or review the show, I'd so appreciate it. And of course, sharing it with friends and colleagues helps to get the message of Dance Teacher Pep Talk out there. So thank you so much again. You can also find us on Instagram at Dance Teacher Pep Talk. Have an amazing day, everybody, and we'll check back on Thursday.